EIKON, internationale Zeitschrift für Fotografie und Medienkunst. Welcome to KunstMatt. Today we have the pleasure to meet Jeff Koons here in Passau, where he gets an art award. So we will have a short talk with Jeff, and afterwards you will see him at the press conference and also personally. It's a great pleasure to have Jeff Koons in our talk. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us today. Short introduction: Jeff Koons is one of the most prominent, interesting and polarizing artists in the world. With his sculptures and often monumental objects, he has achieved world fame at the rank of the most expensive living artist. Jeff Koons is recognized for his work dealing with popular culture and his sculptures depicting everyday objects, among them his famous balloon animals. I just recently saw one of these great works in the Eli Broad collection in Los Angeles, the balloon rabbit. Jeff Koons lives and works in New York City and his hometown of York in Pennsylvania. His works are represented by the most important museums and most important collections in the world. And I think he's one of the rare artists whose works inscribe themselves in the consciousness like hardly any other work of art and assert themselves in the inflation of images. You see his work once and you never forget it. I remember the vacuum cleaners he displayed at the Saatchi collection, Saatchi Museum in the 80s. I remember the work Made in Heaven at the Venice Biennale, which created a worldwide controversy in the arts. I was fascinated by the monumental puppy in front of the Bilbao Guggenheim Museum. And then we met each other personally in the Kunsthalle Vienna when we did the show with the Dakis collection. Yes, and recently I saw your homage to Greece and its mythology in Hydra in Greece. And now we meet again for a talk. Thank you, Jeff, for taking your time. Jeff Koons, you're not only one of the most expensive artists. I just remember the record auction of the rabbit, 91 million some years ago. You're also one of the most famous artists. What does fame mean to you, and doesn't fame also prevent sometimes the view on your work itself?
You know, I always just wanted to participate. Mm-hmm. So as a young artist, I wanted to be engaged. I wanted to be in dialogue with other artists. The idea of the avant-garde, mm-hmm. that you could be part of a group of people that were all mm-hmm. engaged in trying to transcend. This is something that mm-hmm. has always been of interest to me. Mm-hmm. That's what I think about. I never think about the prices. Of course, I wanted to be able to just make my work, right, and just focus on my work.
And your work is sometimes very advanced technology in terms of technology, you know, mm-hmm. and costs a lot of money in production too. No?
Sometimes to articulate mm-hmm. a vocabulary mm-hmm. For the materials I've worked with, there can be some costs, mm-hmm. but you know, whatever it would mm-hmm. be that I'd have to do to achieve it, I would do it. Mm-hmm. But the goal was always just to make works that could communicate to myself, mm-hmm. and then that I could share that with others.
Artists should remain true to themselves and at the same time constantly reinvent themselves. No? And when you look at your first works, the early works, and you look at your recent works, where do you see continuity and where do you see breaks? Were there some caesuras, some breaks, you think, which were important? And what's the continuous idea?
You know, I think the idea, the concept of mm-hmm. of art being new or artists changing, it has to do with adaptability in life. All of us, we have to adapt to circumstances in life. And so I think that artists are at a forefront of showing that we can constantly adapt, and we benefit from adapting. I've always have wanted to become. When I was probably about 18, I realized how effortlessly the arts connect you to all the human disciplines. And I was able to become more involved in philosophy and psychology, sociology. These are the areas that let you continue then to become vaster and to have information to change, to be more information to respond to.
I mean, if I look at your work, I see there is a wide range of difference also. If I think of the Equilibrium series, if I think of the Rabbit, if I think of the Luxury and Degradation series of Michael Jackson, even Made in Heaven, the puppy. In architecture, one speaks about a signature work, a work which includes, condensates the main idea of an artist, of an architect. If I ask you for such a work, which one would you address?
I would think the whole avoir, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of everything kind of does that. It's very hard to pinpoint one thing, but throughout the work, you can see the same core information being represented in different ways. I think an equilibrium tank, one ball equilibrium where a ball is just hovering. It's too light to go to the bottom, but it's too heavy to go to the top. All forces are equal. I think that's a very metaphysical piece. But I also love light, and I love reflection. I like awe and wonderment. So I think my reflective pieces, my Rabbit, or any of my stainless steel pieces, I think play on celestial light.
Right. I mean, you did photographs, you did paintings, you did big objects, sculptures. You like to work with ceramic, porcelain, wood, classical materials, also for a sculpture. Would it disturb you if you would be called a sculptor?
I like to think of myself as an artist because for me it's about ideas. It's not about just using form to communicate ideas. I like the word just artist because at the core of everything, I'm trying to share meaning or to let the viewer feel connected to meaning as quickly as possible, that they can look at an image and realize the vocabulary is about meaning and how wonderful it is that we can find meaning in life.
You were born and raised in the countryside. Was your family interested in the arts, and was there a special experience, like an initiation experience, when you felt, okay, I want to be an artist?
My father was an interior decorator, and he had a store, Henry J. Koons Interiors. So I was brought up, I learned aesthetics through my father. My mother's side of the family, they were, my grandfather was a politician. He was the treasurer in York. And my grandfather and his brothers and sisters, they were merchants. They had stores. They interacted with the public. My father's father was a trolley car driver, a bus driver. He was always interacting with people. So I believe that I picked up aesthetics from my dad, but also through my family, I picked up enjoying people and being part of a community.
There was an encounter with Salvador Dali. I read about it. Is that right?
Yes.
You really met him?
Yes. My mother told me that she saw in a magazine that Dali spent half his time in New York at the St. Regis Hotel each year. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll call the hotel. And I did. I called the hotel and I asked to be put through to Salvador Dali's room. And they did. And all of a sudden, Dali answered the phone. He spoke different languages. It was hard to communicate in the beginning, but then he made it easier. And I told him I was a fan and that I would enjoy meeting him. And he said, if you come to New York this weekend, I'll meet you on Saturday at 12 o'clock in the lobby. And I said, I'll be there. Exactly at 12 o'clock, the elevator doors opened. Dali came out with a big buffalo fur coat on. And he had his cane with a silver head and diamond tie tacks. And he really made you feel special. He always made you feel like he was dressed just for that moment in meeting you. But he told me that he was going to meet a French journalist, a woman, at the Knoedler Gallery because he had an exhibition there. And would I like to go to the Knoedler Gallery and see the show? And I said, sure. He said he'd meet me there. So he went his way, I went my own. I met him at the gallery, and he was walking around with this very tall blonde woman. And he was very excited. He curated 2 exhibitions. He had one of surrealism and Dada that he put together, and one was of his own work. And I learned later that the French journalist was Amanda Lear. And this was Dali's muse throughout the 70s, and an amazing performer, artist, and really important to Dali. After showing Amanda around, he posed in front of a painting, the Royal Tiger. He put his mustache up in the air and he said, "Kid, hurry up, I can't hold this pose all day." And I'm kind of moving around with my camera. And I shot a photograph of him. And I left that day. I went back to, I was living in Baltimore at the time. And I felt like I could do this. I could make art a way of life. And it was very, very generous of him.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you work? How do you come from the first idea to the final work? Is there everything going after a certain plan, or is there also a spontaneous moment in it? Are there changes, for example, based on the change of idea or the change of technology? How do you work?
I work very intuitively. And so whatever I'm interested in, and this is the beautiful part about the enjoyment of transcendence, that the only thing that we have that really brings us the most joy are our interests. And so the only thing that you have to do is follow those interests. And if you follow those interests and really focus on them, you'll realize the abundance of information that you're surrounded by, that you're interested in and curious about. And if you continue to focus on that information, it'll connect you to a universal vocabulary. That's where the metaphysics come in, where time and space bend. But it doesn't fail. As an artist, it's kind of like starting up a car. I remember when I was younger and I would go to art school and I'd come home for the summer, and I wasn't really making my art during that time, during a summer break. I was a child. And then I'd go back to school, and it was kind of like starting up the car again. It's kind of, an old car that you would have a crank, and like, and it was like, okay, I'm going to focus on my work. I'm going to start a painting, and I'm interested in red barns, and and then you do it a little more, and then actually what I'm interested in the barn is a little bit of this aspect of perspective, and before you know it, it starts to run, it turns over, and it doesn't fail. And it's just that continued interest, following your interests and focusing on those interests.
How important are these artists to you? How important is art history for you and your work?
You know, I love art history because I love human history, and I love the connections to other people. And I believe the way we're able to achieve transcendence is by finding something greater than the self in the external world. And people will talk about love. Well, love is there's an activity that's taking place inside, but you're giving it up to something that's external to your own being. And so by finding something greater than the self is how we transcend. And if you look throughout art history, artists love to give it up, to whether they're giving it up to Ovid, or whether you have Rubens giving it up to Leonardo, or, that's how we're able to become.
Can you say something about the relationship of art and life, reality and work? How does your work intertwine with your life?
When I was younger, I had no idea the power of art. I thought that art was, making a realistic object or understanding perspective. Even today, I was educated basically in kind of one-point perspective. There's 7 different points of perspective, but even as an artist, I wasn't really learning that. But what I became informed about once I went to art school and started to have a little understanding of art history, that the arts connect you to all the human disciplines. And so you can be involved in a dialogue about psychology and about philosophy, about physics, aesthetics, all the human disciplines. And that's when my life changed. I remember my art history teacher brought up an image of Manet's Olympia and started to speak about the painting and talked about Olympia being in a position that related to Goya's female figure from a past painting, and how the woman bringing the bouquet of flowers, the meaning that they were a gift of a courtesan, and how the black cat over in the far right corner of the painting could have been a certain symbol in 19th century France. And my life changed, and every day that I wake up, it's always fresh. I always feel a sense that I have a space to become, that I can continue to become a master human being through the arts.
We say we have seconds to communicate and to send this meaning. Is this a disease of our time with TikTok, and that everything has to be really, really, really fast?
I think it's the arts have been performing with a short time period for centuries, but maybe over the last 100 years. There have been times where certain mediums, if we think of painting was serving a different purpose and would have been able to probably sustain people's attention a little longer because of its platform of connecting with kind of information of the day, cultural, historical events. So a part of it would be of the present moment, but yes, I'll come back and just say technologies continue to change, so the platforms change. But I think people they have more leisure time than ever. There's a great dialogue about AI today. AI is a tremendous platform for the arts. We're all using AI every day in our lives, whether using different GPS systems or different search engines. I'm using it as tools within my work. But the real impact that it's going to have, it's going to really bring the work weeks to be shorter, and people are going to have more time.
I heard that you, at the moment, you work on a project which deals with the moon. What is it about?
I have a project called Moon Phases, and Moon Phases is a cube, and this cube contains 125 separate individual moons. And each moon is a moon phase. A moon phase is when the moon is partly in shadow and partly illuminated from the sun, which is all the time. In some manner, there's a moon phase taking place. And each moon phase that's within this cube is a work of art, and it's associated to an individual that in some culture throughout history at some time has been viewed to make a contribution to the world. And so the people can range from Galileo to Muhammad Ali, Rosa Parks, Salvador Dali, a whole range of people, Leonardo da Vinci. So it's subjective in that I chose these artists, but the lunar lander will go to the moon next month. It's hopefully November 16th. It'll be the first time that the United States has returned to the moon since the Apollo missions. It'll be going to the South Pole. And once it lands, it'll be designated as a heritage site. We will get a photograph of the artworks on the moon once it lands. That's the installation of it. A photograph will be sent back. And the artworks consist in three different ways. One way is the little moons that are on the moon, each one with a name of the respective person associated with each moon phase. Then there's a large earth component that's like a 12.5-inch stainless steel moon that is the same moon phase as the one on the moon. If this would be Leonardo da Vinci, the one on the moon would have Leonardo da Vinci. And then also there's an NFT that is created with the photo that's sent back from the moon as soon as it lands.
125 sculptures that I will be sending to the moon. The moon phase will be made out of stainless steel, brought to a high mirror finish, and then transparent color on top. Each moon phase will have the name of an individual throughout history that's made a tremendous contribution. One of the persons could be Leonardo da Vinci. Another one could be David Bowie. People who've made significant changes and have given us a glimpse into how we can transcend. I wanted to bring meaning to the dialogue. I wanted to communicate to people globally how we're able to transform our lives through art. You know, I look at the moon phases, I can see my whole history as an artist. I can think of my encased works, the Equilibrium series, and also just the aspiration of my Nike posters. Moon Phases really deals with global aspiration for humankind, beyond the Earth into the universe.
I'm the first authorized artist by NASA. There are other artists that could have something on the moon. We don't know. We were told that one of the Apollo missions that there was a little square about 1 inch in size, very thin, a ceramic tile that Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Richard, Frank Stella, I think Oldenburg, maybe another artist, made a line drawing on. Now, there's no proof that it's on the moon. If it is, it was kind of covert, where somebody had it created and then they took it there. I'm sure that some astronauts have stacked some rocks, and they've made works. So there are things that are there, but this is considered the first authorized.
Jeff Koons, thank you for this talk and good luck.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Ich freue mich sehr auf die neue Kooperation mit dem Art Institute Vienna und dass wir dank dieser mit ER9 nun auch im Fernsehen zu sehen sind. Jedes Heft auch ein individuelles Themenheft mit der Rubrik im Fokus, wo wir internationale Kuratorinnen und Kuratoren, Expertinnen und Experten einladen, auf aktuelle kulturpolitische Geschehen einzugehen.
Ja, und ich darf Sie einmal im Monat, am letzten Sonntag des Monats bei KunstMatt, bei EIKON, herzlich begrüßen. Im Übrigen sind wir auch auf der Homepage des Art Institute Vienna zu sehen.